knocked my gavel off. Are you ready?
I am.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We're going to bring the August 14th, 2018 Land Board to an opening. It's my understanding that Secretary Richardson is appearing by phone. We hope you're feeling better, Secretary Richardson, and we're glad you're not willing to share what you have with the rest of us.
Second.
Can you hear? Can you hear okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear. Thank you.
All right, Director Walker.
Okay, great. Well, good morning to all of you. Welcome to the Department of State Lands on what is supposed to be a very hot day, and thankfully it's not hot yet. We have a very short agenda, as I promised you, and I kept my promise as best I could, so we'll get started. The first item is the consent item to approve the minutes of the June 12, 2018 State Land Board meeting, and those are in your packet and have been shared online.
Madam Chair, she wasn't kidding. That's a short consent agenda. I'd move approval of the minutes for the June 12th, 2018 meeting.
Treasurer Reed moves approval of the minutes of the June 12th meeting of the State Land Board. Do I hear any objection? So ordered.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll move quickly into our action items. We have an amended budget request. That's under tab 2. Unfortunately, because I am an interim director, the Department of Administrative Services analyst would not let us approve our plan to do a reclassification within our internal processes. So I'm having to come to you to ask you to approve an addition to our policy option packages. So this will be approval of package 115. Let me explain what we're doing here. The 2014-15 Oregon Management Classification Study conducted an analysis of the department's management services and management support positions with respective duties and responsibilities. The study identified gaps in the department structure and recommended the reclassification of 14 positions. 13 of those were management services and 1 is executive support. Over the past 2 biennia, as we've had money available, the department has reclassified 6 of the management positions when internal financing was available to permanently fund the reclassifications. The department now requests approval to reclassify the 7 remaining management positions and 1 executive support position. This will not impact our budget other than normal step increases. And in light of the state doing a parity study on wages, we just thought it was appropriate to keep moving this forward. So the Department of State Lands recommends that the Land Board approve the addition of package 115 to the earlier submittal of the DSL budget, including approved policy option packages 101 through 111, these are ones you already approved, and policy option packages 113 through 114 on June 12th. So this just adds to those. That would be our recommendation.
Madam Chair, I move approval of the addition of package 115 to the earlier DSL budget submission.
Treasurer Reed moves approval of the addition of package 115 to the earlier submittal of the DSL budget. Any discussion? Any objection? So ordered.
Great, thank you. Now I'll just take that up with the legislature.
Yes.
You guys are easy.
Good luck.
They're a little harder. All right, now we're going to turn to the main event at tab 3. This is agenda item 3, and it's very exciting to be a part of this because when I was back in the legislature, I heard about this project and I was very excited, and it's so cool to be here and be a part of what I think is an awesome project coming to fruition. So what we're asking you to do here today is to approve the continuing planning process on the South Redmond tract. by submitting applications to expand the urban growth boundary and for annexation of the property into the jurisdiction of the city of Redmond, and by applying for large lot industrial zoning designation for the property. We're also requesting approval to partition 2 parcels from the larger parcel for a land exchange with the Deschutes County, for their fairgrounds, and a land sale to the Oregon Military Department. So let me talk about that. The Oregon Constitution allows the land board to make such decisions. And the background is the department has been pursuing the strategy to convert 945 acres of Department of State lands land to urbanized land inside the boundaries of the city of Redmond since acquiring the property in 2008. When the tract was transferred by the BLM as in lieu selections, the tract was described as being 945.33 acres, which we promptly rounded to 945 acres. Deschutes County Assessor's Plat Map describes the tract as being 951.7 acres. That was confusing to me, and so I started a search through all the records, and I found 6 different types of descriptions of acreage for this property. So it created a lot of conversation in the office because I think there should be one number. Well, there's not one number, and I'll tell you why. The old survey equipment, according to our staffer, did not consider the curvature of the earth. So when this property was, when this was surveyed, we missed a little bit probably. So we're going to stick with the number somewhere around 945 because the appraiser is required by his protocol to use the county assessor's number of 951.7. I don't think Mayor Endicott's going to argue with us. He's going to take this no matter what it is.
5 acres I can get.
So that explains why you've seen different numbers over the years. All right, so in collaboration with our partners, Deschutes County, the City of Redmond, and the Oregon Military Department, DSL staff and contracted consultants have prepared plans for a Deschutes County Fairgrounds expansion. Yes, that's awesome. And I know, Governor, you appreciate this, a new Oregon Military Department National Guard Readiness Center that is not in an earthquake zone.
Thank you. I am very excited about this project. So,
And also a large lot industrial special use designation for the remainder of the property to facilitate sale to a private industrial user or users in the future. Besides occasional military training, the property has really never been developed, farmed, or irrigated for agricultural purposes. It has Class 7 and Class 8 soils. At the October 2008 Land Board meeting, which of you were here then? 2008?
I don't think I was sworn in till 09, till
That's
January
right.
of
So
09.
you were not part of this decision.
Nope.
So at the 2008 Land Board meeting, the South Redmond Tract Land Use and Management Plan was approved by the board. Well, because that was a board that's completely different than this board, I felt very uncomfortable making decisions about this property that involved large amounts of money without this land board approving it. So that's why we're here today. In 2012, new state land use legislation was passed that allows land to be added to a city's urban growth boundary if there's a demonstrated regional need for a specific type of land, such as large lot industrial land. A coalition of planners from Crook, Jefferson, and Deschutes County and the cities of Madras, Prineville, Bend, Redmond, and Terrebonne pooled their resources to have a study done that demonstrated the need for large lot industrial land in the region to diversify the employment base. I will also add, your staff, Annette Liba, wanted me to make note that this has been a regional solutions priority since 2011. The Regional Solutions Advisory Committee appointed by the governor identified the availability of serviced employment land as a priority in Central Oregon. Heavy lifting to get to this point were done by DLCD, ODOT and Business Oregon, in addition to yours truly here, the Department of State Lands. That work included legislation, litigation, and rulemaking to establish the Central Oregon Large Lot Program, the economic analysis showing the regional need, and a creative approach for considering transportation impacts associated with long-term development of the site. The Regional Solutions Advisory Committee prioritized infrastructure investment proposed by the City of Redmond for Regional Solutions funding, and that funding request will be considered by the Regional Solutions Grant and Loan Review Committee on August 19th. So we're moving right along with this property. DSL engaged in a professional services contract in 2015 with urban planning firm Angelo Planning Group to prepare the land use applications to master plan the South Redmond tract for expansion of the Redmond urban growth boundary and complete an annexation agreement to incorporate the property into the Redmond city limits. Deschutes County and Oregon Military Department, of course, intend to acquire the most northerly 160 acres. The remaining acreage, approximately 785, would be designated large lot industrial and annexed into the city. The applications for the annexation and the application of the large lot industrial zoning designation described above are complete and fully prepared for submission to the local jurisdictions upon authorization. And I have the annexation agreement sealed and delivered and approved by Department of Justice. And so if the land board approves this transaction today, I'm prepared to sign it and have it notarized by our staff, and then the City of Redmond will take it back to their city council and have it approved, and then they will sign it. So that's the plan. So you will see in your packet the whole timeline since acquisition in 2008. People can see that online as well, but we have not dallied on this project. I was really pleased to hear and see that our department has been very judicious with its time and moving this project forward, as have all the partners. So let me get to the valuation, because I think that's really key. I didn't feel comfortable coming to you and asking for you to make the investment of the infrastructure without knowing the value of this property, because that didn't make a lot of sense. So we had this property appraised by Philip Hanshoe, and then we also had it peer reviewed so that we could make sure we have a really good appraisal. So for the hypothetical aggregate retail value, the appraisers determine the retail value of the land as individual lots as compared to other large lot industrial sales in the area. The aggregate retail value is the total value of the land sold as individual lots, ranging in size from 124 acres to 200 acres, and that value is $18.8 million. Let me repeat that. $18.8 million. That's cool. I'm excited about it. So then the appraisers considered the as-is value by discounting the lot sales over time. And based on the appraiser's revised report, August 3rd, because we had to go back and forth on a couple of things, the as-is value of the property is $6 million. The revised value after annexation is estimated at $8.1 million, which reflects a higher value because the expenses for annexation have been paid and a higher value per acre sale price is anticipated. An expenditure of approximately $200,000 is expected on the land use application fees, and approximately $2.6 million is estimated for DSL's obligation to install base level infrastructure to serve the property as required by city and county codes and the large lot industrial designation. The department anticipates these pre-development costs would be covered by the sale of the first 150 acres of the property. So we should get our money back right away. And if the mayor is correct, there are several interested folks in this property. So this is a prime location. The investment will provide DSL with a healthy return, and I mean healthy return, to the Common School Fund, as well as help to provide the Central Oregon region with much-needed large lot industrial land to attract higher-paying manufacturing jobs. If the property is sold within the projected time frame, the internal rate of return on this property will be 13.5% per year, which I think is pretty good. So I would like to invite Mayor George Endicott from the city of Redmond up to give us a couple of comments about why he thinks this property is so important, and then I'll come back and summarize it with a recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Good morning, Governor, Mr. Reed, and Mr. Richardson on the phone. Thank you all for your kind attention and invitation to come today. I'd also like to point out John Stark, who is the executive director of our Redmond Economic Development. He's the one that attracts those traded sector jobs, and obviously been quite excited throughout this whole process. Unfortunately, one of the members of our team, James Lewis from the county, could not be here. Tragic situation. His father died yesterday.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So he could not attend. He had planned to come as well. Okay. I want to thank the Land Board and each one of you for considering this item today. Having the Land Board authorize the infrastructure investment and signing the annexation agreement is a massive milestone for Redmond and the entire Central Oregon region. This has been a decade in the making. Your leadership, and specifically the leadership of Director Walker and her staff, have thoughtfully moved this project to where we are today. The authorization positions Redmond to work with the Redmond Economic Development, the state, and other partners to focus on transforming that bare land into a hub of family wage industrial jobs and to keep up with the growth in Central Oregon. Swiftness remains important as we hope to have this land catch the momentum of our current economy. This highlights the essential point that we keep working together, joined by the Department of Land Conservation and Development, to make sure the land is efficiently brought inside the urban growth boundary in 2019. As far as the Redmond City Council is concerned, we will take action on this annexation agreement on September 11th, given that you approve the action today. And I'm willing to, I've been involved in this since the very beginning, and I'm willing to entertain any questions you have regarding any of the aspects of it. Hopefully I could answer them if you have any.
Secretary Richardson, any questions or comments at this point?
No, I feel a cough coming out. Sorry.
You're okay. Treasurer Reed.
No, Madam Chair, excited to see what's going to happen on this piece of property.
Yes, thank you. I am really pleased about the collaborative efforts. This was truly a city, multiple counties, regional solutions, and state agency partnership. I think it's an incredible opportunity, and I'm just really excited about our ability to move forward on this. My other concern, I couldn't tell from the map how far this property is located from the airport. Just
Mile and a half?
okay. All right, so it's very close. Okay.
It is. And of course, as you know, the airport is a huge economic engine for Redmond and all of Central Oregon.
Absolutely.
The one commercial airport east of the Cascade.
So, very important. My other concern is housing, and as I'm talking to communities around the state, I know that's been an ongoing issue, and I just would love to hear from you what you see, what you anticipating happening in order to make sure that there's housing available for the future workforce that and these industrial lands will produce and need. So,
well, I'm glad you asked, actually. We have right now master planned over the next 10 years, at least 1,200 homes being developed. Right now there are about 400 under construction, and we're we're pushing right now 200 to 300 homes a year actually being built as we speak. Many of those are, well, affordable is a relative term, as we know, but many of those, a majority of those houses, actually the single family, are in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. So they're at least a living wage affordable home. We also have many new condos and apartments going in. We are one of the 2 finalists for the Affordable Housing Project.
That was the House Bill 4709,
Yes,
as I
ma'am.
recall. Yes. And do you know when, it's between you and Bend, right?
It is. What we have been proposing to DLCD, and hopefully the commission can look at awarding both of us
Okay.
contracts. I think the way the bill was written, it was
I think it was one,
Yeah.
yes.
But you know, I mean, the legislature always has some options here. So they could revisit that. But of course, we think we're the front runner. But we would end up building, it was 40 acres. Geez, half of the homes were going to be considered affordable. But Redmond is one of the cities right now in the state that is constrained as far as wage vis-a-vis rents. It's quite a problem, as we know, around the state.
And the 4709 process, do you know when the final city will be determined?
So next month.
Okay. All right.
Our package was due, I think, this Friday. And then,
This has been a 10-year project. Any lessons learned that we can share with our state agency process and our regional solutions team?
I think, to be fair to everyone, it's been a moving target in this case for quite a few reasons. You heard about the recent passing of the REOA legislation, the Regional Economic Opportunity Analysis. That's the authority for the large lot industrial and sort of what I call out of cycle for land use and annexation. So that happened in the middle of this in 2012. When we first started, there was some parks land that came in that was on the periphery of this land. So that added a complication. This land swap that you heard Ms. Walker refer to was another piece, because what we wanted to do is carve out that piece for the Fairgrounds and OEM to be able to build. I call it an armory. I think they call it a training center. And so all of those, as we went, then this little complication happened, and then the next time, and this little complication. So I don't know that there's a lot of lessons other than, anytime you have a project of this magnitude, there are going to be adjustments along the way. And to me, those are perfectly acceptable. I mean, I know 10 years seems like a long time, but as we all know, the public process moves slowly.
I'm also chuckling in terms of the 10-year process. That the other interesting thing for me was interacting with the Regional Solutions Advisory Council, and at the outset, I just really appreciate the region's willingness to prioritize projects, and I think that really helps us at the state level make both economic development decisions, investment decisions, infrastructure decisions that are really focused in ways that the regions feel are appropriate. So,
well, the Regional Solution, which I'm a member, is, but I didn't unduly influence, just so you know. I think Mr. Holleran, it would be tough to influence him in a way he didn't want to go. But I agree. I think the Regional Solutions teams are great. From all the mayors I talk to around the state and the meetings I attend, they are well respected and really work on our behalf. So thank you for coming up with that. It's a great.
I think it was one of my predecessors, but we're certainly working on building it and making sure they have adequate resources to make the investments needed in the region.
Yeah,
so
they are a very healthy resource for us.
All right. I don't have anything else. Secretary Richardson, anything else?
No.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I wanted to recognize a couple of your folks that were involved in this that you didn't mention. Deborah McMahon, your planning manager at the City of Redmond, and then we've got and Keith Witkowski. How could we forget your city manager? He's sort of the...
I was looking at the three that were expected to be here, sorry.
Yeah, well, he's sort of the guy that keeps it all running. And then we've got some folks from the military department. I'm not sure if you're all in the room. Stanley Hutchinson is not here.
Oh,
or is he?
There he is.
There he is. Hi. Okay. Are you happy about this?
This is awesome.
Okay.
As the mayor said, this is.
Oh, come on up to the microphone. It's fine.
I don't have a speech, but I do want to thank everybody involved. This has been, as the mayor mentioned, you know, I was looking at my notes today, and we started talking about this in 2007, actually, as an opportunity, and it's been great to be able to, also as mentioned, you know, look to the future of the National Guard, find a location where we can get into
Outside an earthquake zone.
There you go. And this would be replacing an armory that was constructed, I believe, 1952. So it does not serve our soldiers well right now. So it's also contiguous with our National Guard training area that we lease from the Bureau of Land Management, which also makes good sense from a training standpoint. So again, I thank you all for this process that we've been a part of.
Thank you.
And you've got a couple of folks that have been working with you also that are key. Joanne Manson is your master planner, and Art Arroyo is your real estate property manager.
Neither of them are able to be here today, but they're the ones that do all the muscle work to make this happen from our agency standpoint.
So tell them we're giving them 2 thumbs up. So.
All right. And then I have 2 staff that have been particularly involved with this piece, John Swanson and Clara Taylor. Would you stand and be recognized?
That's great. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, I can't do any of this type of work without Deputy Director Bill Ryan, right there.
Yay.
So, and there are so many other support staff here that help us make sure we look good. So, with that said, I'm going to come to the recommendation. Based upon the work completed by multiple partners over a 10-year period, which is really short time in government work, the Department of State Lands recommends the Land Board approve the following. Approve the submission of the land use planning applications for the UGB, Urban Growth Boundary Expansion, annexation, and partition of lots for the Oregon Military Department Readiness Center and Deschutes County Fairground expansion, including the approximate $200,000 application fees, and to advance this long-anticipated project to final approval. This will continue the investment made with state and local partners to meet the needs of Deschutes County, the Oregon Military Department, the City of Redmond, and open the door to bring all kinds of new family wage jobs to Central Oregon. Also, approve the funding for the infrastructure obligations to satisfy the City of Redmond community development requirements and the State of Oregon large lot industrial special designation requirements. And you have all of the appendices attached. A is your map, B is your letters from the Board of Commissioners and the City of Redmond, and C is the annexation agreement. It says draft in your notebook, but I have the final version waiting here for me to sign should you all approve. So with that, I will be quiet and turn it back over to you, Governor Brown.
Thank you, Director Walker. Treasurer Reed.
Madam Chair, Director Walker, does this make sense to do in a single motion, or would you prefer to have them as separate motions?
I think single motion is fine.
Okay. Madam Chair, move approval of the submission of the application and the approval of the funding for infrastructure obligations as described by the Director.
Treasurer Reed moves approval of the submission of the land use planning applications as well as the funding for infrastructure obligations. Further discussion. Secretary Richardson.
No, I second the motion.
Thank you very much. Hearing and seeing no objection to the motion, it is unanimously approved. Yay! Congratulations. 10 years. Great.
Governor Brown, as I discussed, we would like to do a photo op with all the folks that are here. And then after we do that, then I'll quietly sign this document and Ann will notarize it, and then we'll get back to our agenda. So if we could take just a short break to do the photo?
And Secretary Richardson, don't worry, we'll Photoshop you into the photo. We'll figure out a way. A brief recess, I guess. Brief recess, yes. I'm not going to... let's go right up here. Up here in front of the desk. Let's get right over here.
Thank you, sir.
Good to see you. Thank you.
John, come on, you guys
Come on. Closer. Okay. I have not met Allie.
Allie Ryan Hansen is
You two should come. I'm going to put you over here next to the treasurer. I've done these photos before. Great. Congratulations. This is really exciting. Thank you. I'm also very excited about this project. It makes me really concerned that we have a readiness center. Exactly. So,
Mr. Richardson, thank you.
Congratulations.
all right.
Hey, hang on, guys. Just one minute. I have this for you.
They're not going anywhere. That's great.
Yes, sir.
He's here. I wanted to at least make sure he had some conversation.
Tom actually worked on the RU with us.
Okay.
DLCD and worked on the RU with us.
Okay.
Both year.
Let's make sure we have page
Okay, yes, yes,
One.
okay.
She's gonna stick around.
I'll go.
2, 3, 4, 5. All right, Mr. Mayor, it's in your hands.
All right,
This is like gold.
September 11th.
All
It'll
right.
be on our agenda.
All right.
Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, and I did want to thank Shelby Robinson at DOJ for her hard work to get this done. And during the break, I introduced you all, but I'm not sure the secretary heard me. Our new communications manager is Allie Ryan Hansen, and she comes to us from Dogami, the Department of Geology and Mineral Industries, so I was glad to steal her away. They were very sad to lose her, but we are thrilled. And we took Allie with us 2 weeks ago now, and I'll be discussing where we went and what we did. All right, so we'll move along into item number 4, informational item, an update on the RFI for forest land management. And RFI is request for information. I'm trying not to say acronyms and not telling you what they are because people need to know what they are, and I used to chastise people when I was chairing committees for doing that. So let me get to item number 4. The Department of State Lands, based on the Land Board's recommendation, initiated a project to solicit information and feedback from the vendor community regarding options for managing approximately 33,000 acres of common school forest lands outside of that giant Elliott State Forest. The method for the information gathering is through a request for information. It's a public process executed through the Oregon Procurement Information Network, known as ORPIN. The department is using this procurement tool to gather options and alternatives for managing the forest lands. We completed a contract with a Portland State University Hatfield Fellow, Angela Alvarado, to help us with the development of the RFI, the research, and to perform response analysis and report writing. A timeline of events is attached to your presentation. The RFI was put out on the street on July 30, and it closes on August 30. And our procurement officer, Michelle, has told me that we're getting lots of hits on that, so that's good. We plan to have Angela review those responses September 4 through 14, and then we'll prepare a draft report with recommendations to DSL and for the land board assistance for their meeting on September 21, and then we will give you an update at the October 16 land board meeting. So we are moving forward on that, and we'll see where that goes. Any questions? All right, so then we get to other, which is my favorite part because I like to highlight things that we do here. We do a lot here, but some things are just extraordinary, and I want to make sure that you know what we're up to. So item number 1 for you today is the Elliott State Forest updates. Oregon Consensus has nearly completed all of their interviews under phase 2 of their commitment under the IGA, Intergovernmental Agreement, and is now drafting their report. The report will be ready to share with the public prior to the land board meeting of October 16, and we expect to review it internally and with the land board assistance in late September. As you will recall, phase 2 consisted of developing a resolution framework, conducting interviews and focus groups with people representing a variety of interest groups to assess key issues and determine the degree of current common ground, and producing a summary report of the findings that will inform phase 3 work. Concurrently, DSL hired ICF, and that's their acronym. It's ICF International, so I don't know what all that stands for, but it's ICF. It's a global consulting services company, and they are conducting the HCP, the Habitat Conservation Plan, on the Elliott. ICF met with our staff in late June to begin the process of development of the HCP. Presently, we have been meeting about every 2 weeks internally with frequent communication. Last Thursday, August 9th, the department and ICF met with federal and state agencies, the agency group, we're calling it, in Portland for our official kickoff work. We discussed the basic elements of the HCP and worked to gain agreements on the project schedule. I believe everyone is in agreement that we are committed to reaching final resolution on an HCP that meets all necessary requirements with all due dispatch, lightning speed. Some in the room had worked on the previous 4 drafts, so to both them and the department, failure is not an option. Our work plan schedule expects us to have the draft HCP reviewed by DSL and the services by October 2019, just next year, and that's right around the corner. That will be followed by a year-long NEPA process, National Environmental Policy Act, resulting in a completed HCP by November 2020 with the ITP, incidental take permit under Section 10 of the Endangered Species Act to follow by 2021. The department is also considering opportunities for a public entity who has expressed a serious commitment to purchasing the Elliott to make a presentation to the agency group during the initial stages of the HCP to provide input on the information they will need to make informed decisions. The federal agencies are anxious to know who might be seriously considered about taking control of the Elliott after the decoupling process, so that they know who they will be working with for enforcement of any HCP. So any questions about that? All right, so my next topic still involves the Elliott. So at your place is a map. And this map was our tour map. So on Thursday of last week, we met in Portland, and then our contractors stayed over, and Friday we went and toured the Elliott. It's 93,000 acres. So we didn't tour but the middle of it. It was, we took about 4 hours and just sliced up through the middle, and you can see our yellow line, which was our tour route, and we ended up having to even shorten that up, excuse me, because it just became too long out there. I hadn't been to the Elliott since I was a teenager,
Oh, wow.
going to high school in Reedsport, and, you know, we hung out there. And that is how long ago I went. I used to swim at Loon Lake. I used to water ski at Loon Lake. So we went in at the Loon Lake side, and we came out at Larson Slough, just south of North Bend. The Elliott State Forest, for those who don't know, is located in the southern Oregon Coast Range. Coos Bay and North Bend are the nearest cities to the southwest of the Elliott State Forest. Reedsport is the nearest town to the northwest. Hence, it was a great place for high school kids to go. The forest is a continuous block of land approximately 18 miles long, north to south, and 16 miles wide, west to east. The Umpqua River approximates the northern boundary of the forest. To the west, the Elliott State Forest extends to within 6 miles of the ocean, and you can actually see the ocean from an overlook at some point in the Elliott. Where, I can't remember. On the east, it extends approximately 21 miles inland. The contiguous Elliott State Forest covers about 93,000 acres in Coos and Douglas counties, 82,500 acres of which are considered a land asset of the Common School Fund. And that little bit of information I got from a previous HCP draft. Conifer forests cover nearly all of the Elliott, about 98%. They are beautiful, beautiful forests. Most of the forest resulted from the 1868 Coos Bay fire. Today, as a result of harvest and management, about half of the conifer forests on these lands are less than 75 years old. A slightly lesser amount are between 76 and 145 years old, and only a few thousand acres are older than 146. In other words, older than dirt. The Elliott State Forest produces high-quality timber, dispersed recreation opportunities, and excellent habitat for many of the region's fish and wildlife species. My personal opinion is I'm hopeful through the decoupling process and the HCP development that we can find a way for all of these activities to coexist for the benefit of Oregon's school children. The forest is massive, it's steep in many places, not accessible really by humans unless you really want to tie a rope somewhere and make sure you don't slide down the hill. But it is a beautiful, outstanding asset for the Common School Fund. So that was our trip out to the Elliott, and I will tell you the contractors were delighted to go out there and actually see what it is we're talking about. We all took lots of pictures. We saw one doe and 2 little fawns run out in front of us off into the woods, and the only other people we saw was a truck with 2 young men in it that looked like they might be thinking about poaching, but we didn't stop to ask them that question. All right, so any questions about that trip? And I was hoping I could get some land board assistants to go with me on that, but they were out last week doing other things. So there will be another trip. I will tell you that our contractors, Titan Kelly, are doing an excellent, excellent job of managing this forest. They have maintained the roads quite nicely. They've maintained the brush, and they were great tour guides. And I plan on taking another run at a tour, and so perhaps another time one of you can go with me.
Director Walker, just a suggestion while we're working closely with the Oregon legislature on this project. It might be worth inviting members, obviously the folks, Senator Roblin, Representative McEwen have probably been there, but I'm sure there are a lot of members who haven't, and you might obviously target your invites, but to those that are making decisions regarding either the land board or the Elliott in particular, but it might be worth inviting some legislators down. So,
Governor, that is an excellent suggestion because you don't really get a sense of how massive this forest is until you're in it. And so I think it would be excellent. And there are some recreational opportunities at the lower elevation along the west fork of the, is it the Millicoma, Bill?
Millicom.
Yeah, the west fork of the Millicoma. That's where your recreation opportunities lie, but certainly not on the steep hillsides. Good suggestion. We will plan another trip before the fall rains come. All right, well, I have two more items that won't take nearly as long. The next item is I wanted to let you know that on July 30 through August 3rd, so a whole 5 days, myself, Deputy Director Bill Ryan and Allie Ryan Hansen met with our Bend field staff to travel to eastern and southeastern Oregon to visit our rangelands and communication sites. DSL staff in Bend administers and manages our rangeland leases under administrative rules adopted by the Land Board. We have, according to Randy Wiest, our rangeland manager lead, we have 620,000 acres of rangeland, of which all but 1,400 acres are currently leased. Those 1,400 acres are one leasehold on the John Day, which they expect to have leased again by fall or early winter. Staff said that with the exception of Treetop and GI Ranch, which are large corporations, most of the ground leased is primarily by small to mid-size operators, where the state trust lands are a major portion of their grazing operations. So I want you to know that this really helps the economy in this part of the world. These folks are terrific partners. They're great leaseholders. They're working with our department for leasehold improvements and doing a terrific job out there. We continue to improve our ground to make it more profitable for them and us by a range improvement fund. So 12.5% of the grazing receipts are directed directly into the range improvement fund, and those monies are then used to improve the rangelands. Some of the range projects are, and they're all cost shared with our lessees, and they're often partnered with our other partners, including Natural Resource Conservation Service, OSU, Agricultural Research Service, Cooperative Weed Management Areas, 4 of those, local governments, Farm Service Agency, OWEB, ODOT, and ODFW. So we have a range of partners that we work with. Typical range improvement projects, and we saw many of these, include livestock wells and water lines, fences, cattle guards, juniper removal, noxious weed treatments, seedlings following noxious weed treatments, stock ponds, and spring developments. In addition to projects funded through our range improvement fund, we have partnered with adjacent landowners, lessees, and numerous agencies for larger landscape-wide projects. These projects we only contribute technical expertise for, we don't contribute money, but that's really important to the lessees. Water rights are not needed for wells drilled for livestock, as they are not used for irrigation, but on the rangelands, water rights are needed when building a stock pond or a small reservoir. And as we come along later, we've come along later with our water rights, so we are junior to many of the water right holders out there. So we're hoping we don't have a shortage, because we'll be among the first to have to cut back on the use of our water. I know the Secretary was interested on what our revenue was from the rangelands. My staff tells me that in 2017, rangeland revenue was $1.2 million, with a net operating income of $647,032. Fluctuations of the revenue off rangelands tracks pretty closely to years with high fire expenses. The year DSL showed a huge loss in revenue was in 2016, where we had to reimburse BLM for the 2014 Buzzard Fire, an astounding $1.6 million. So we showed a net loss of $1.2 million in our rangeland income that year. This was compounded by Treetop, one of our larger landholders, not grazing their leasehold for 1.5 years and therefore not being billed. So in general, though, without these rangelands, there would be no opportunities for renewable energy projects, wind, solar, and geothermal, along with easements and keeping a number of small ranchers in business. The rangelands have always produced a steady and consistent flow of income, excluding the fire issue and potential drought reductions. With that said, fires on rangelands are not always a bad thing in the long term. They're actually a good thing for rejuvenating the soil and the crops. I used to think all that sagebrush was worthless until I went out there, and there's grass out there between all that sagebrush, and there's a lot of good grass. So it is an excellent place for us with utilizing our trust lands. We saw a number of wildlife, a lot of antelope. They can run, according to Bill Ryan, 60 miles an hour, and I'm going to challenge anyone to double check his Google mind, but they ran fast. I had my first encounter with a rattlesnake. Fortunately, it was on the side of the road, but Eagle Ear Randy heard the rattle as we drove by with the truck on, the air on, and people talking. Wow. And so we backed up and backed forward, and we located the rattler right there. I thought it was big. Bill tells me it was a baby, but it was big enough to scare the heck out of me. So we got a lot of experience. We went on top of the Steens Mountain. It was unfortunately smoky, so the view was obscured, unfortunately, but there's a lot of beautiful plants up there, and we have communication sites on the very top, and they serve our emergency network as well as some cellular networks. So, and we are reviewing our leases, our tower leases, and we increase them this year for 5 years, and then we're doing a longitudinal study that will see how to increase those in the future, because I am confident that Verizon can pay more than they currently do, and some of our other cell towers. So that was our trip. And I have one more item to share with you, and that happened over the weekend. My goodness, we had our auction. Over the weekend. It started last Thursday for our biennial auction of abandoned safe deposit boxes and other unclaimed valuables. We grossed $145,956 at the auction. Coins were about 63,000 of that, and jewelry and other items like sports memorabilia, rail books, and miscellaneous items were almost 83,000. What we saw this year at our auction was a huge increase in online sales. For the coins, 60.5% of those sales were online. People could watch and bid online. It was terrific. And for the other items, it was 55.5%. I want to thank Patrick and his entire team for the work they did putting this auction together. I know Deputy Director Gene Strait attended the auction and assisted the staff, and Allie Ryan Hansen also attended. These items came from unclaimed property, and before we hold the auction, the state searches for box owners whose names are also posted in the Oregon Searchable Unclaimed Property Database. Sale proceeds are posted to the owner's account and are available forever to be claimed by the owner or their heirs. So even though we might have sold these valuables, the money remains in the common school fund, and should an heir ever come forward, they will get the cash from that sale. But the item now is with another owner to be cherished and done with whatever they want to do with it. Until the fund sends twice yearly distributions to all of Oregon's K-12 public schools. So this auction is really an important piece of what we do here at the department. I feel like I've been talking forever, but that brings to a close all of the exciting things. There were plenty more. I will tell you the River Queen is gone, gone, gone. And I'll have a...
Like, great, yay.
And so that, I think, is my final notice to you all, and we'll have a final bill on that and report in October. But that is
We
my...
won't be applauding that one, I don't think.
Not the bill. Yeah.
No. But I will be excited to tell you in October how we're changing up managing our leases in the future so we don't run into that kind of a problem in the future. So the staff here is terrific. If you didn't know that, if I haven't told you that before, I'm going to tell it to you again. They are outstanding, both here and in Bend, and then our South SLU staff in Charleston have done a fantastic job. They've seen an exponential increase in the education opportunities, which is a clear nexus to the Common School Fund. And I have been out there several times and actually paddled in the canoe out in the slough and ran into a herd of elk and a bald eagle. And I mean, this is a beautiful place as well as a good study area for climate change. So lots of things happening here at the department. Come spend a day with us if you like. Tomorrow I'm going out with our estate program. Jean and I are going to go to an estate that died without heirs and walk into the house and see what we've got.
Okay.
And this is what they encounter pretty regularly, so this is my time in the sun with that staff, Greg and Sally, who work very hard at that.
Great. Any other comments from Secretary Richardson? We hope you feel better.
I appreciate.
Treasurer Reed, anything? I think with no further business to come before the land board, I think we are adjourned. Thank you very much for that updated report. We really appreciate the information.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right. Oh, South Slough. Have you guys been to the South Slough?
Yes.
Okay. It's really cool.